Against America, you think, come on.
Unfunded by taxpayers, completely found, President Trump has gotten this, all the private donation. But here's the thing. In Washington, D.C. and generally, no good deed goes unpunished. And President Trump is trying to deliver a beautiful ballroom. And it's not extravagant to think of a beautiful ballroom for the White House. Honestly, going there, the White House feels small and a little bit underwhelming at this point. And President is trying to, at this 250-year mark, show the world that we can actually host something more than a few hundred people and maybe invite dignitaries and presidents and leaders. And look, what he's already done to the White House has been so beautiful. I walked into a foyer covered in marble now, and no longer this kind of gross yellow color. I mean, he just has an eye for detail, and this will be such a gift to the American people.
And who exactly is paying for this so-called gift to America? That's right, it's us. It's the American taxpayer.
We're going to introduce legislation that would authorize $400 million to be spent to secure to build the presidential ballroom. Underneath, there will be a lot of military stuff. There will be a Secret Service annex. And we've paid for it by offsetting it with custom fees. But the estimate is $332 million. We're going to do $400 million because I think it's probably going to take more. Private donations can be used, but I think they should be used for buying China and stuff like that. Underneath this ballroom will be infrastructure that is national security centric. The ballroom itself will avoid the dilemma of having to leave the White House grounds with future presidents and this president's to go downtown in a place that's less secure. President Trump said to me yesterday, we need the ballroom not just for me but for future presidents. He literally could have left his bedroom, walked out the back of the White House, and been at the ballroom. That's what needs to happen when you have 1,000 or 2,000 people gathered in today's environment. And the sooner we get the ballroom built, the more hardened it is, the better for the country. So I hope and pray that most people in the Senate after Saturday night will support this bill.
No one's arguing against reevaluating some of the security around the Correspondence Center, but that is a private event at a private location from a private organization that's not held by the White House and had twice as many guests as this proposed ballroom would hold. So why do you find it appropriate to link these two events so closely?
Well, I find it appropriate if you're going to have the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, and half the cabinet in a room, the room matters. And the idea that you can't do this in the ballroom will be up to the Correspondents Association. It is insane to do this again. Anybody who suggests that we have an event like this in the times in which we live, in a facility like Hilton, that's crazy. We're going to have to accommodate the times in which we live. And Eric, you nailed it. You did. There are people out there that are nuts, being driven to take up violence is an acceptable outcome in too many people's opinion. So no, we're going to build this facility. And I would suggest to the next president, don't go to the Hilton. Don't do an event at the Hilton or any other facility outside the White House, given the times in which we live. The problem is you don't have a choice. We're going to give people that choice. And if you want to vote no, vote no. I want you to go home and tell the American people why you take off the table an option to have 1,000 or 2 people come to the White House grounds, the safest place we can find, to enjoy themselves. And underneath there will be things that are not about enjoyment, but about national security. There'll be a Secret Service annex to it. So the need is real.
So, okay, the White House, obviously, they told the Washington Post, it's standard practice to not post an agreement like this because national security is involved, right? We're talking about, a building involving the White House. And they said they keep emphasizing, their post was President Trump is working 24/7 to make America great again. They end with, at no taxpayer expense. What do you say to that part when he says, this is, people should be celebrating this, that companies are paying for it? And by the way, he said he himself is also paying for it.
Sure. 2 things. Number one, taxpayers are paying for all of it because the companies that gave the money to this project, though just the ones we know about. We did a report that found that they have $279 billion in government contracts in the last 5 years. So those companies pretty likely are going to get a lot more money from the American taxpayers than they're putting into this project. So whether it's through being ripped off in the marketplace or inflated government contracts that we pay for, the American people are going to pay for this. Another thing is that the president has increasingly said that the part under the ballroom is a part of the project in response to the other litigation that's tried to stop the project, right?
Right. Well,
and
he's saying that's the national security, so you can't get involved
security
and get your
part. So
oversight.
if that's true, I would like to know from the president and his people whether these dollars from private donors are paying for this underground bunker, or whether the American people are paying for this underground bunker, because that's not at all clear.
At the end of the day, the only reason that Donald Trump is trying to build a ballroom is because he likes it, and he thinks that it's cool, and he thinks that it'll make him look special and timeless and legendary. When she sits up here and talks about, we want to show the world that we can host an event with more than a few hundred people. We have football stadiums, okay? Like we have venues where we can have, not hundreds, but tens of thousands of people, literally. We have these types of stadiums and domes. We can do this. Now, what y'all might want to do is amp up your security so that people aren't just running through trying to assassinate everybody. That might be what y'all want to focus on. But at the end of the day, nobody cares about a grand ballroom. I mean, how many people in the United States will ever go to the White House, let alone Washington, D.C.? There's millions of people who will never go to Washington, D.C. And if they do, they're not going to get to tour this ballroom. Donald Trump's just trying to leave some type of legacy. That's why he's putting his name on our currency. That's why he's trying to build the Arc to Trump. That's why he's doing all these things, because he's trying to leave his name so that people can remember him. But other than that, there's absolutely no use for this. This is the same guy, again, who has hundreds of millions of dollars in slush fund accounts that he created while he was president. This is the same man who funneled over $1 billion in taxpayer money to himself for the Board of Peace that he put himself as president for life of. So at the end of the day, this is just a ridiculous ego project for Donald Trump and nothing more.